Our first segment today will be over the culture in the Roaring Twenties. For this segment, we will have special interviews with two influential figures of the 1920s, Jack Dempsey and Lou Gehrig. Let's delve into it. All right, fellas, over the years, what have been your guys' greatest accomplishments?
Me, Jack Dempsey, thank you as well for letting me on the show. I've been listening for many years. And my greatest accomplishments are winning the boxing title on July 4th, 1919, knocking out Jess Willard in 3 rounds. Many of my fights set financial and attendance records, including the first $1 Million gate.
First off, I'd like to thank you for letting me come on the show today. I'm Lou Gehrig, and my greatest accomplishments are holding the record for the most Grand Slams in baseball history. I sure hope somebody in 2013 doesn't break that. I was unfortunately diagnosed with ALS, and I gave a famous retirement speech at Yankee Stadium.
Now for our first commercial break.
Have you ever been driving and forgot to stop? Well, we have a new product for you. Introducing the traffic light. It is the newest way to control traffic. The traffic light has 3 colors, green, yellow, and red. Green means go, red means stop, and yellow means the light's about to be red, so slow down. The traffic light is suspended above the road so it is not in your way, but still clearly visible. The traffic light will help you decrease crashes and be a safe driver.
After that quick commercial break, we're back onto the podcast. Thank you to our sponsors. Segment 2 is going to be about 1920s politics. So let's start off. Explain what it means for the stock market to crash.
So basically, in order for the stock market to crash, there has to be more sellers than there are buyers, which occurs during the Great Depression. 2 big causes of this were buying on margins and massive selling of stock.
Alright, so explain Herbert Hoover's economic policy of rugged individualism and tell me at least one action he made to try and help people.
So basically, rugged individualism is basically saying that just deal with it or womp womp. Hoover realized American people needed help, but Hoover implemented the Reconstruction Finance Corporation, which was to provide relief to banks and businesses, but not people.
Interesting. If somebody were to ask you about the presidents from Iowa, the great state of Iowa, would you claim Herbert Hoover?
So, unfortunately, the only president from Iowa is Herbert Hoover, but he isn't particularly favored in Iowa. He implemented rugged individualism, like I mentioned earlier, and made us deal with the Depression instead of letting the government intervene and help the economy. Due to this, about 12.5 million people lost their jobs and were left unemployed.
Oh wow, that's pretty interesting that the great state of Iowa can't claim a great president. Anyways, let's move on. How about you explain what happened in the Tulsa Massacre?
Right, so the Tulsa Massacre happened on May 30th through June 1st. It was a riot caused by this guy named Dick Rowland who got into an elevator with a white woman named Sarah Page. Because of this, the police were called. Dick was arrested the following day and was taken to the courthouse. This started a dispute between armed white and black mobs. So a large outrage happened, and about 6,000 people were held in the convention halls for as long as 8 days, and about 36 people believed to die, and 800 were treated for injuries.
Wow, that is extremely interesting, sir. All right, segment 3 is going to be about Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So how about we get started? Tell me about 2 standards and precedents that FDR set as president.
Well, one precedent is that Franklin D. Roosevelt was president for 4 consecutive terms. This set a record that hasn't been broken since 1797. Another standard that FDR set was called the gold standard, which made it so gold would be prohibited to export.
All right, sir. So how about you list and explain what you believe are the 2 best New Deal programs?
Well, the New Deal improved the lives of many people that were suffering in the best parts of the deal, where that it put people back to work and it would give the people faith and finally get out of the depression that Americans were living in for the longest time.
All right.
One way that it helped many people was that there was a program called the Civil Rights Administration. The CWA was created to help to get people back on their feet and created jobs for the people who didn't have any. Another way that the New Deal was successful was through a different program called the Works Progress Administration, also known as the WPA. It was the largest program in the New Deal and gave people jobs across the country.
All right. So was the New Deal a success?
The New Deal was definitely a success in American history because of all the benefits that came from it. For example, all the jobs that came from this deal and the new faith that it brought to the American people about its own economy. To put this into perspective, the FERA had employed 20 million people at the end of 1935, and in 1939, it had also brought the economy back to the level it was at before the Great Depression.
Okay. So compare Hoover's plan with FDR's. Which one aligns more closely with the Catholic doctrine?
So overall, FDR's plan aligned more with the Catholic doctrine teaching. This is because Hoover's plan was more like deal with it and pull yourself up. FDR's plan was to use the government to help people in need, which is what the Catholic Church agreed with. For example, Pope Francis said, and I quote, "In full respect for that freedom, civil society is called to help each person and social organization to take up its specific role and thus contribute to the common good." This aligns with FDR much more because it helped the American people rather than Hoover telling us to help ourselves.
Now for our second commercial break. Take it away.
Are you busy and struggling to find time to feed your baby? Try prepackaged baby food. Now you can save time and still provide healthy nutrition for your baby. Head on down to your local grocery store and pick up some baby food.
Wow, that was an interesting new product there from our sponsors. Once again, we'd like to thank them. Couldn't do it without them. We'll move on to segment 4, Up from the Dust. So, sir, what was life like for a teenager during the Great Depression?
Life as a teenager during the Great Depression was really hard. Most teenagers had to do a lot of chores and responsibilities around the farm. They had to help farm the crops and sell the crops to people, even though the depression had caused the sales to go way down. Teenagers had to go into town and try and find jobs to support their family during these tough times. Also, they had to help neighboring farmers as everyone in the Great Depression was struggling.
Wow, man, that sounds like a lot of weight on your shoulders. How about life for immigrants during the 1920s and 30s?
Life in the 1920s were difficult for anyone, but especially for the immigrants. We see this from the immigrant quota of 1924. This quota limited the entry of immigrants. The quota provided immigration visas to only 2% of the total number of people of each nationality in the United States. So it was really hard just to get into America. Immigrants were also racially profiled in these times. We know it was hard for everyone to find jobs during the Great Depression, but immigrants had really no chance because they would be denied immediately because of their race. This made life for immigrants a lot harder.
Wow, it sure sounds like they had a rough time. So how about life for farmers during the Dust Bowl?
Oh man, life for farmers during the Dust Bowl was a living nightmare. Crops failed to grow, livestock starved and died, and thousands of farm families lost their farm and went into poverty. In addition to the Great Depression, the Dust Bowl put farmers into great poverty.
We'd like to thank you all for listening to today's show. We just recapped the entirety of the 1920s. It was a rough decade, but we made it up from the dust. We made it through it. Let's just hope for a good 1930s, shall we?
Yep.